knew who I was. I've always been Black. Even though I'm biracial, I'm a Black woman. Legacy, oh, legacy, oh. A lot of times you'll find as a writer, you're in conversation with yourself, but also with the rest of society. This is what the rest of Hollywood is like. I won't be here long because I'm not one to suffer fools. We belong in every space that we choose to occupy. Everybody was encouraged to be their best selves and to bring what they brought.
Legacy, oh, legacy. Everybody knows that A Different World changed my life.
Changed mine too.
And I'm excited to hear about how it changed your life. But first, I'm just so curious as to how you got that job.
Simple. You want to hear the story from the beginning?
Yes.
Senior year, Stanford University.
Okay.
Spring quarter. I'm having a pity party with my best friend, Kimberly, because I'm supposed to be graduating, supposed to be going to USC Law School, and we're not feeling it. We're watching The Cosby Show like we did for the past 3 years. It's a Thursday night. And for the first time, I see the name of someone I know in the credits, as the credits scroll. Stu Gardner, the composer. And I'm like, what? Wow, that's interesting. I know him. I wonder if he'll remember me. And I wonder if he can put me in contact with someone who might be able to help me explore what I was feeling as this desire to write television. I didn't know anything about what it took or what the pathway might be to such a position. And I took a flyer. I took a chance. I made a bold move. I called NBC in Los Angeles. They gave me a phone number to NBC in New York. They gave me the phone number to the Kaufman Astoria studios in New York where they were shooting The Cosby Show. And I tracked down Stu Gardner. And I thought I was going to have to remind him who I was because I knew him and his children when I was very young, like younger than 10 years old. We lived in the same apartment building in Hollywood. And I was friends with his son and his daughter, who were like cousins to me. So he was kind of like a play uncle. But when I was growing up, we were also quite transient. So I didn't know that he would remember me. But we kind of took to each other as families pretty quickly. And it just so happened that he remembered me. And he called me back and I said, I have this desire to write for television, but I really don't have any ins and I don't really have any knowledge about what that'll, entail. And he said, well, I happen to be heading your way. I'm headed to the Bay in a couple weeks to meet with Dr. Cosby, who's shooting a movie, the now classic Leonard Part 6 in Oakland, just across the Bay. So I met him there, and he introduced me to Dr. Cosby. And I made an appeal. I said, I have this creative energy that has to be tapped, like a total crazy person. And he's like, there ain't nothing for you out here. Go to law school. And I said, but I really feel like this is my calling. This is my purpose, to tell stories. I've been a storyteller as long as I can remember.
What was it about television that spoke to you?
Just its mass appeal and how far-reaching it was, to be completely honest, and also that I didn't really see myself there, but I wanted to. And I was raised on television. I was a latchkey kid. It's like I was raised by my mother and that television, So wanting to see the kinds of relationships and the kinds of characters that I enjoyed seeing reflected on the TV, but in brown, in hues of brown, was something that I just craved.
What was missing that you did bring into the writer's room for A Different World?
What I brought was that incredibly fresh, youthful voice, like someone who had just graduated from college was now sitting in the room on a show that took place at college. So I knew about the protests. I knew about the relationships that we had with each other. I knew about the community. Like I was there. I felt like I was sent there to speak for my generation.
True, and it's interesting because you did go to a PWI.
I totally went to a
predominantly white institution.
Yes.
For those that don't know. Yes. Obviously, A Different World is focusing on a fictitious HBCU. You have Debbie Allen at the helm, being the sort of voice for the HBCUers. Mm-hmm. Susan Fales Hill, who was Susan Fales at the time, is a Harvard graduate.
Yep.
So,
my girl.
Yes. And I'm curious to know how you brought a different perspective to the room as well, coming from Stanford.
Well, again, I was bringing the most recent college experience to the room, as well as a willingness to be vulnerable and tell not only stories that I'd written about in my journal, but to rip pages from other people's journal, tell all their business, change their names to protect the guilty. They know who they are. And just reveal all and reveal our humanity also through humor, which was really important to me.
What season did you come into a different?
Season 1.
Season 1.
Very beginning.
Oh,
yes.
And you were there for the entire run?
No, I left after season 5. I wrote the episode, Save the Best for Last, the wedding episode. Susan and I broke it into 2 parts, and then I left. But I wrote part 1 and entitled the 2-parter, Save the Best for Last, because I knew it was my swan song on that show.
Got it. So you got to live through the evolution of the show.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and what a blessing that was to be part of that evolution, because there was no one who had created the show working on the show day to day. So that kind of left this creative chasm for myself and Susan and Debbie to fill. And we knew that first season that we weren't doing the show that we could and should be doing.
Because Debbie wasn't there yet.
Correct.
She got there season 2.
But Thad and Susan and I knew that there was another show to be excavated and nurtured in those characters.
Talk to me about what it was like working with Susan Fields.
A delight. It was like working with my big sister. So, we would have lots of hilarious, intellectual, passionate debates. I mean, I spoke about her and I said, we were there, kind of painting a new palette with all these different hues and also sharing every story of every boy who dared to break our hearts, because that was what was important to us in our 20s, finding love and figuring out who you were in the world.
Did you two feel like you had a real voice on the show?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Even though you knew the leadership it was under at the time wasn't necessarily understanding the world, but you did feel like you were able to get some things in that season 1?
Absolutely. I mean, and that gave me, every time something that I suggested made it through that iron shield, that was affirmation. But I also came there feeling like I belong in this space. I really did believe that. Not arrogantly, but confidently. And I think Thad and Susan were particularly nurturing that first season. And, we were in the war-torn trenches of season 1. We had a common enemy in the season 1 showrunner. Right. And we worked some 20-hour days. I mean, like, we would work, we would be delirious at times. Like, it was 7 a.m. and we were going home after a late night rewrite to shower, maybe take a nap, and come right back by 10. So we paid our dues, and we paid our dues together. I mean, like, you can't go through that kind of gauntlet and not be bonded for life. Like, that's my sister. That's my sister. And Thad was my brother. He's no longer with us.
What did you learn about yourself after that first season?
I learned work ethic and resilience. And I learned that every no isn't a blow. It's just an opportunity to come up with something else. So I learned how to be really resilient and really quick, really facile on my feet. Like, we were pitching jokes on the fly, And then when Debbie came in and the bar was raised, not only by her, but by all of us for the collective, you had to be even faster. Because now there were even more people who had a say, and that was wonderful, quite frankly. I mean, she really did mend things between the page and the stage, the writers and the actors, and that was, I mean, it was essential to the show, quite frankly. We had a great rapport. Like, Susan and I in particular had a great relationship with the actors because we literally were the same age as most of the cast. So even during season 1, as we were trudging through those trenches, those creative trenches together, we were partying after show night and on the weekends. We were friends. Those were my friends.
Yeah. How long after you joined the show did you actually get staffed officially?
The second season.
Second season.
The second season, yes. The second season, I think I had because staff writers didn't always have on-screen credits. So I think my title was program consultant.
Got it.
But the first season, not only did I get to pitch characters and stories that did get used, there were times when freelance writers or other people on staff wrote episodes, and I got to rewrite those episodes before they went to the table.
Zero pay.
So I would zero pay until like halfway through the first season when I called Dr. Cosby and I said, you know, when you sent me here and you said the pay was zero, I would like to let you know kind of what I've been doing and what I've been contributing. And I said, it's been considerable, and I think I've earned a salary. And he looked into it, and there was no one who argued with the case I was making for myself. And then they gave me a PA salary. So I made a whopping 94 cents an hour that year.
That's how it was done in those days.
You know, no risk, no reward. No risk, no reward. And having come from not having any understanding of the industry or television writing or character development or story arcs or any of those things, I was just learning. I was just being an apprentice.
Kind of like grad school?
Exactly. I consider myself having gotten my master's at Hillman on A Different World and my PhD on Living Single. One of the wonderful things about being an apprentice was that it was not that defined a job. And so when the writer's room kind of shut down for no particular reason and there wasn't anything to really observe, I moved throughout the production freely, watching the actors process, the director, spent a lot of time in editing. And that's where I was like, oh, wow, this is where the show gets made. This is where the power is. This is where this is the final rewrite, you know? So I really learned about production. It was my TV/film school.
Yeah. When Debbie did come in and changed everything, you know, for the better, someone would argue, and you're now staffed, how does that change the writer's room experience for you?
I didn't feel like it changed because as I mentioned, Thad and Susan and I were always having our own clandestine conversations about what it should be. So when Debbie came into the mix after our HBCU tour that Thad and Susan and I took between seasons 1 and 2 to gather more information, our reconnaissance mission, we were ready. You know, and so it just felt like more of a partnership as opposed to us, the writers in the trenches, working against a common enemy. You know, it felt like we had a partner who was there to really facilitate the relationship. And there were certainly challenges. I mean, honestly, like you ask about that being that young, fresh voice. I mean, there were times when, you know, Debbie would say, hey, this is how we did it at Howard. And I would say, at another decade.
Did you challenge?
So we each had to own our space.
Did you challenge Debbie? How was that?
Absolutely.
I know all about that.
Absolutely.
What was that like for you taking on Debbie Allen?
I mean, it felt right. It felt like not only did she welcome the actors to have a say about the writing, the writers also felt empowered to have a say about the actors and also choices being made by the director. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was just a feeling that we were all more empowered to really own our space and to have discourse that was sometimes not disagreeable, but just different and have a different point of view. You know what I'm saying? Every point of view was appreciated. So it wasn't like she came there and everybody was supposed to get in line. Everybody was encouraged to be their best selves and to bring what they brought.
I'm curious, when did you kind of start to make some real money on A Different World? When did you start to feel that confidence? When were you thinking to yourself, and I'm assuming it's probably maybe around season 3 or season 4, where you're no longer the apprentice. You don't have to call Dr. Cosby to make sure you're getting paid. Debbie Allen respects you. Susan's watched you grow up with her. How are you able to kind of really sort of throw your weight around, feel yourself driving a different car when you come to the lot?
Probably. I mean, I think I got pretty comfortable, quite frankly, after season 2. Like, this show's going to be here for a while. And then also, quite humbly saying to myself, because of you and your creative partners. You know, so I felt I was on pretty secure footing there. I'm like, this is a great show, and I've been part of making it so. So live your life, And I moved out of my mom's house, which I had the opportunity to do that first year, and I moved out on my own. And by the fourth season, I bought the first house I ever lived in. I bought my first home.
And while you're in your home and you're on this show that's like the #2 show in America, are you feeling bliss or a whole ton of responsibility to make sure the show continues to work?
Both. But the responsibility never felt like pressure. It always felt like opportunity. It really did. It felt like opportunity to reflect us as we see ourselves. And again, we all have different lenses. And I think that was the beauty of the show and part of the, massive appeal of the show, that people could find different points of entry to a different world.
While you were there, were you starting to daydream about what it would be like to have your own show?
No. I was very focused on being present and participating in that what I knew was a unique experience. I had no idea what the rest of Hollywood was like, but when I was there, I feel like I did have that rare perspective that this is different. I was later going to find out exactly how different a different world was.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask. Was that being your first gig ever in Hollywood a gift or a curse?
A total gift. A total gift in every way. Personally, creatively, in terms of elevating my consciousness, connecting me more to my Blackness. Even though I knew who I was, I've always been Black. Even though I'm biracial, I'm a Black woman.
What did you learn about leadership while being on the set of A Different World?
That we all had the potential to be leaders. And that, quite frankly, as Black people in America, we owed it to ourselves to own that position, to lead. I think we're here to lead.
Speaking of, the next credit I'm going to, you become the leader of this ship. And it really becomes a show that I think is just as significant as A Different World. Because I think of it as a continuation.
So do I.
How did Living Single come together?
Through a lot of perseverance. But I will say, so I left, as we discussed, I left A Different World kind of at its peak. But when I knew it was time for me to leave the nest, to really kind of test my mettle, to see who I could be, outside of that ivory tower where...
5 years is a long time.
It is a long time. It is a long time. But it was the right amount of time for me. Like, I felt very ready to go out on my own into the wilderness. Lord only knows how wild it was. And I found myself in a situation where it was very oppressive in the writer's room. It was sexist. It was racist. It was isolating. And I was like, oh my gosh, this was the great unknown. This is what the rest of Hollywood is like. I won't be here long because I'm not one to suffer fools. And so I doubled down on my interest in developing. Little did I know when I'd left A Different World how shortly thereafter I would develop my own show, because it wasn't a focus of mine. Like I said, when I was at A Different World, I was very kind of myopically focused on pouring everything I had into that show, ripping every page from my diary to tell those stories. And I realized that if I was going to thrive, or others who look like me, who came from places like I came from, were going to thrive, that I needed to create that environment. I needed to build that table and the chairs. And so I set out to develop. And I went, I had been having some development meetings, just general meetings, after I left A Different World and before I landed on my next gig. And so I just went back to the studio and said, I'm ready. I'm ready. And they said, well, we actually have talent holding deals with Kim Coles and Queen Latifah. They want to do something together. And they had advocated for a Black writer to get the opportunity to develop that show. And I was the beneficiary of their advocacy. Again, we were really fortunate that all of the chemistry came together. You know, that I sat down with Kim, I sat down with Dana, and that's Latifah, for those who don't know, and really tried to take what I felt was like the best of them and then create characters around them so that they could really thrive. You know, because they also, in addition to having, Kim being on The Living Color, which was a sketch show, so it was a different tone, and Latifah having done guest spots, they were fairly inexperienced. So I wanted to make sure that whatever I created fit them comfortably, and that they were also surrounded by other people that could elevate them and take a little pressure off of them. So that's really the reason I said, you know what, I'm going to make this an ensemble. Plus, I can have more points of view, because I'd also come from this beautiful, friends as family ensemble on a different world. So as you mentioned, it was a continuation for me emotionally and creatively. I mean, this was life almost immediately after college.
Absolutely.
After coming from that environment to this.
It just has such a stunning cast. Everyone is so different. Everyone's so amazing. Can you talk to me about Kim Fields becoming Regine?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, again, those personal relationships. I met Kim Fields through her friendship with Daryl Bell, who was a good friend of mine on a different world. And I created Regine as that little girl in me. And I felt like Kim could play this. She could play the heck out of this. So I actually invited her to my office while I was developing the show and asked her if she would consider playing the part. And she actually at the time wanted me to do something else for her. And I was like, I'm really focused on this right now, because when I get focused, I get in there. But if this doesn't work out, we can talk about the other. But it worked out.
I love Kim Fields. Obviously, I loved her on Facts of Life as well. I mean, she's very much a star in her own right at that time, too. Someone could also argue a part of the Whitley Gilbert lineage, but what did you want Regine to be? Because she is different from Whitley Gilbert. She's giving me Lola Falana energy as well. Who did you want her to be?
Regine was really the less evolved version of myself. Who was from where I'm from, where Whitley was not where I was from.
Right.
Whitley's from where Susan's from, and we just, we harvested all of that and poured that into Whitley and what we understood of that character. And as we filled her out, it became more and more obvious that we were telling Susan's story. And to some degree, she's never been quite that superficial. But again, to have that real lineage, a family crest, those things. I'd never met anyone who had a family crest before I met Susan, right?
Fine.
Okay.
Hello.
Shout out to Timothy Fails. But I think we all have a little Regine in us, someone who comes from the mud, but who dares to want more.
Yeah. And
has no shame about it. So that was really what I wanted to explore, kind of at the core of that character. Like,
and
nerve.
And the wigs also became a bit of a character of their own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So nice.
And that came out of a conversation that Kim and I were having just about on-set hair care. And I was like, let's make it a feature, because it's something that we do, And we hadn't had a lot of shows that featured us where, we were wrapping our heads with scarves or wearing bonnets or literally, having short hair one day, having braids the next, having a weave. Those are all parts of us. And also she was a character who was at a stage in her life where she was not just finding herself, but redefining herself every day to figure out what she wanted in life. And so that was just another way to explore that, to externalize it, to physicalize it, and to add humor. It was hilarious. We created whole moments where she'd come in with one look, run upstairs, come out with another different hair, right, the ponytail, the party tail, the whip appeal, so many things. And gave Erica, who played Maxine Shaw, a lot to talk about.
Well, speaking of Maxine Shaw, another iconic character played by an iconic human, Erica Alexander, also coming from the lineage of obviously The Cosby Show and as Pam, she sort of blossoms into, so again, it feels like a continuation. It feels like, is this who Pam grew up to be? You know what I mean? I know it's completely different characters, but it's from the same universe because you are a part of that bridge. But you really kind of let Erica Alexander become this woman that is strong, is funny, not afraid to go back for seconds, has a lust for life. And it's just someone we've never seen before. Where does she come from?
My alter ego. She's my Sasha Fierce. Maxine Shaw
Attorney at law?
is my Sasha Fierce. She was the very necessary armor for a woman who is really an introvert, often masquerading as an extrovert because society kind of asks for it. You know, they kind of want us to be out front, and that's just not really who I am. But I was supposed to go to law school, as we discussed. So I was like, she's going to be a lawyer. Because there's some about me that is very much in line with people who become attorneys. You know, my politics, you know, my argumentative nature, my desire to debate things until we find the very best and then put it in the show. So that, yeah, Maxine Shaw, that's me. That was the character that was most one-to-one a representative of me at that time.
But what's interesting about the Max character is that I know you did struggle with the network about her in general and who she was and what she represented. And what's fascinating about strong women, if you will, or women who I always deemed not to be ladylike because they're not acting like ladies supposedly should. She almost is always barreling into the apartment because she isn't a roommate. And that was by design. But
it was by redesign.
By the network. But by the network. The network doesn't want her in that space all the time. But what I think is really nice.
They don't want her in the show.
The Black woman lawyer who has trouble, you know, dealing with the opposite sex for whatever reason, it became something that I think represented a group of women that really hadn't felt seen. And you fought for her.
Absolutely. I mean, I told them after I received feedback from the network on the first draft of the pilot, they questioned Max's existence in the show, and they suggested that I get rid of her. Like, do we really need this many women? Do we really need this many characters? And I said, well, to take Max out of the show is to take a big part of me out of the show, and I'd rather not do the show. So, like, it's my first opportunity to create a show. Everything was on the line, but I didn't know what the show was without that character. And it was also legitimately my first opportunity from scratch to put my whole self in a character, in a show. So I came up with the solution that she lived across the street. I'm like, she has the means to do so, and I'll just get more comedy from her constantly barreling in and helping herself to their food and their men and their castaways and their clothes and, you know, their television, whatever it was. Like, to also, like, physicalize that we belong in every space that we choose to occupy.
Yeah.
So her coming across the street was a choice. And it's just, I mean, it's very subliminal, but it was also very intentional.
You rarely see her apartment, too, which is kind of funny and hilarious.
People got very excited by the time we did go.
Yeah, because it was like,
and she and Kyle were getting it on over there.
Come on, it just took us a while to get there.
It did.
Also, I love the guys. You know, obviously, you have T.C. Carson, you have John Hinton, Overton, and Kyle, respectfully. Can you talk about that male energy on the show and what they brought to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I really felt like even though the center of the show and the inspiration for the show started with this core four women, that when you have that strong a female energy, it needs to be balanced out. I feel that about myself. And so enter Kyle and Overton, who are, quite frankly, very loosely modeled after the real Kyle and Overton. Kyle Bowser, married now 31 years.
Still going.
To Maxine. Kyle and Max are still together. And his real life best friend is Overton. Kyle and Overton have that relationship to this day. They talk every day. They talk every day.
The real life version.
The real life Kyle and Overton talk every day. And those two actors had immediate chemistry.
Yeah, they're great.
And we were like, we have to maximize this. Like, they earned more space and time on screen.
There's a couple episodes I want to talk to you about. One in particular, season 1, She's Not Heavy, She's My Mother.
One of my favorites.
I remember having a profound impact on me when I watched it in real time. I remember just thinking how special it was and how specific you all were being. But I also really loved, as a writer, watching it back, how amazing it is you're dancing two mother-daughter relationships against each other. One, they're in love with each other, and they're so happy, Queen Latifah and her mother.
Skipping around.
You know, and may her beautiful mother rest. And then you have Regine and her mom struggling. And I think you and I can relate to Regine's story. And I love the joke at the end where they call, you know, Latifah and her mom, Rita, freaks. Because I think you and I think it's odd to be close with your mom. It feels more real to be at odds with your mother. How was it for you in the room to get that episode so right and so pitch perfect? And I'm also curious what the set was like, too, to have your actresses' real moms there for the taping.
Well, Chip was always there. She was actually our dialogue coach.
Oh.
So Chip was there. She was there at the ready. So that was great to just have her step right into that role. And it was really kind of just a crazy experiment to say, hey, Dana, do you think your mom might enjoy being on the show?
She's so good.
And take a stab at playing this role. I had a very complicated relationship with my mother. Yeah, I'm going to try not to get too emotional when I think about my mom. But I was really able to, we were super, super close. We actually were very close. We actually were very close. So I was able to depict that's the spectrum of mother-daughter relationships, because I'd had moments that looked like both of those pairings. That's really the truth of it, you know. My mom and I had those, you know, frictious squabbles. My mother had every ugly sweater known to man. She tried to pass them down to me. We have a very different sense of fashion. But we also had a really tight, loving relationship, because growing up, that's all I had. It was really me and my mom, even though my dad was kind of in and out of my life, and then my stepdad was there for a little while. It was always me and her. It was always me and her. So my years with my mother were really reflected in both of those relationships. So it was easy to unpack it all. And to put those relationships against each other was really fun. It was kind of like maybe the Gemini in me. I was kind of, a lot of times you'll find as a writer, you're in conversation with yourself.
All the time.
Right? But also with the rest of society. And that's when it resonates. And you don't necessarily get to decide. Like, you don't get to decide what connects with the audience. You don't get to decide what they deem iconic. The audience decides if they want to be talking about something 30 some odd years later, right? If it's their comfort show, God bless.
There's another episode I really love called The Talk Showdown. Season 2.
Khadijah.
I remember watching that episode and just being blown away by it. There's so much commentary in the episode. You're commentating on talk shows at the time and what was happening. That was sort of our first Real Housewives. Was the writers' room feeling what Kyle was feeling? Is that these shows were sleazy and designed to make people feel better about themselves?
He was there to definitely represent one voice in the room. He wasn't there to represent society. He was there to represent those who think these shows are foolish, but there are people who are getting their entire lives seeing other people who are worse off than they are. So that was really kind of the big part of the commentary.
I mean, it was interesting to hear today. I mean, there's obviously, again, this is that bridge happening again between A Different World and your show, with Jennifer Lewis being there, who is phenomenal in the episode and is doing a lot of work in the episode.
She is working it like only Jennifer Lewis can.
I mean, it's actually a tour de force, like this performance. Delia, who came up with this character, this suit, this hair, the way she's talking, the way she's moving? Obviously, it's a bit of a heightened, crazy version of Oprah Winfrey, Sally Jesse Raphael. Mm-hmm. What were you guys thinking? And did you have Jennifer in mind
Absolutely
to do it?
had Jennifer. Absolutely had Dean Davenport.
Dean Dorothy Dandridge Davenport.
Yes.
We want to be completely clear.
Yes, sure. Yes.
But, and then
we'll let you do it.
She morphs into Delia,
yes.
the talk show host and author.
Yes.
I cry, you cry. What was the impetus behind? Because I'm going to give you your own shit. Like, I'm going like, what? But also, it's classic writing. Right. They go on the show.
Right. Well,
to get some fame and some love.
Right. Well, you have the social commentary about these kinds of shows, and that are designed to help us.
Right.
But how helpful are they really?
Yeah.
And these hosts, who are they really there for?
Right.
And then you have in mind this, phenomenal talent in Jennifer Lewis.
Yeah.
And you got the perfect confluence.
So great.
There are very few moments in life that get a writer that high as I was that night.
I mean...
but then they managed to do it again and again and again, episode after episode. And they had, I think, unparalleled chemistry, that cast, and such respect for each other.
Yeah.
The table reads we had... they would come to work and sit down at a table and read those scripts, and we would be howling, and they would be laughing, and they would be high-fiving each other as if they'd written it themselves. And we were like, when they get on the floor and perform it and own it the way they're owning it now, it's going to be magic.
Wow.
It's going to be magic.
Last but not least, is an episode I want to talk about called Woman to Woman, which is season 3. First of all, it's Karen Lena Waithe, again, the bridge, a beautiful reunion of, she was once Charmaine, but she plays Max's former college roommate who is engaged to be married to a person named Chris, who turns out to be a woman, played by Tanika Ray. And it kind of throws Max for a loop. Not necessarily because she's queer, but because she's the last to know.
The last to know.
And I think you all do a really beautiful thing, because it's always tricky when you go back and watch stuff from the 90s and there's a queer thing that comes up, because it can be really tricky in terms of how people treated it then.
Absolutely.
But what I love is, before you go to the iconic theme song, Sinclair says, lesbians, neat. And we go to check. At that time, what was it for you? Whose idea was it to go get Karen?
That was probably my idea.
Okay.
That was probably my idea. I remember, I'm saying, we had...
It's obviously
we had Kadeem.
It's obviously
we had Charnel.
we
had Cree.
That's a wing.
We had so many...
Was that you wanting to...
Blue Myers.
Afraid of that bridge? Because some people might have said, I'm here now, I have my own show, and I'm not going to go back to my different world, Cosby Show roots. This is my thing. Because a person could do that. And I love that you clearly run toward your history and your past.
Lean into it. Yeah. Lean into it. Own it. And they're family.
Clearly.
They're family, and they're capable. They're talented. People want to see them. I have a platform.
It's beautiful.
Let's give the people what they want. Give the people what they want.
Were you all nervous at all? Was there a desire to want to talk about the fact that there are queer Black women in the world? Was that a responsibility for you? Or was it just a thing that sort of came up and said, this would be a cool idea for an episode?
I think it was the latter. I think it was more, this will be a cool idea for an episode. Like, it doesn't have to be an issue. It just is. We don't always have to be, taking a deep dive. But I think it was important to, again, display us, in the fullest spectrum. So I was like, we haven't really had any gay characters on the show. We'd had some, but we hadn't really featured them. So it wasn't really an agenda, although I will say oftentimes, as I certainly learned and embraced on A Different World, that our art is a big part of our activism. So again, just by that simple representation and not making it an issue, we were making a statement that was powerful. I feel like the show Living Single aged really well. And there are certain moments where I go, "Ooh, I wish we'd written something different here."
For sure.
There.
I mean, but it's a timestamp, though. It's a timestamp. You got a bajillion episodes you're doing a season.
Absolutely. But also, again, as we evolve, our consciousness evolves, God willing. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It does. And you're just like, oh, wow, we could have handled that better, or maybe not given that character that thing to say.
Yeah, I hear you. One other thing I want to talk about, too, when Mara was here, she talked about losing a main character on a show. I've had that experience as well, losing someone from principal cast.
Right.
What is that like for a show creator, for you to have to understand that parting of ways and also still be there for the rest of your cast?
It wasn't my heart's desire. It was not my heart's desire. And I do believe that situation was one where I wish that I maybe felt like I had more of a choice, and also, creatively and financially. But I didn't. But I also refused to feel like I failed someone, because I know that I did the best I could at the time. Feel like very parental saying that, but that was hard. It was really hard. And so I tried to channel that heartbreak into the few stories that we were able to do with Kyle. And I feel very blessed that he was able to come back, that he agreed to come back and finish the series. And we're all, super tight to this day. We have a group chat. I actually had Kyle and Max come and play characters on Half and Half, which is like so fun, so unusual, such a treat for the Living Single audience and the Half and Half audience. And for me in particular, to revisit those characters like a decade or more later. But that was our brother, and we had to make that change.
Can you talk a little bit about what that relationship is like between creator and cast? Because I think people don't really understand that relationship. And it's a difficult one to explain to people, because you change each other's lives and you are forever connected. But it is still a business relationship that somehow becomes a personal one, because the amount of time you spend with these people and the way your lives change at the same time. What is it like for a person who has cast people in a show that changes their lives, and then your lives change over the course of the series?
Right. I think it's different for every show creator, quite frankly. I think that you and I are on the same page in feeling that they not only change your life forever, but also you're connected forever. I don't think that that's true of most people, most creators. I don't think that in certain circles they have the same kind of intimate relationships that we do. But coming up from a different world and having been so bonded with those actors and gaining so much mutual respect in that experience, it was kind of like I not only craved it, but maybe demanded it in subsequent experiences, even if I wasn't the creator of the show. Like, I just really believe that you need to work in concert with each other to yield the results that we're all ultimately looking for. So, I mean, I have friendships with everyone from every cast. Not all the same relationships, but I have a rapport and a connection to pretty much every, principal cast member I've ever worked with. And that's a blessing.
Well, we're all grateful for every single character, all living single, every actor, every person, because it is still watchable. It is still this special miracle that you all created and you gave us. And these characters really live on inside of us. We see ourselves in them. We aspired to be like them, but we also felt like they were who we were. It wasn't like they felt so far away.
Thank you.
And it's hard to do that on multicam, to make it feel so grounded in something real. And you do that so beautifully with that show.
Thank you. I don't think it's that hard. When it's your intention, I think intentionality is so key.
It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do.
Okay.
And it's a rare person that can make that happen.
Thank you.
The next credit, this was what we like to call a short-lived show, but it left an imprint on my memory. Lush Life.
Ahead of its time.
Karen Parsons.
Junior high school
Lori
friend.
Petty.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I remember watching the pilot. I remember watching these episodes. Big fan of, obviously, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So I'm seeing Karen Parsons going like, okay, Lori Petty knew a little bit about her, didn't know a ton.
Thank girl.
Where did this idea come from of these two women, a bit of an odd couple, one bit of an artist, quirky, no one have hardly any money. One has a bit of money, comes from it, black, white, in an apartment. You created the show.
With Karen and Lori.
With Karen and Lori.
The idea came from Karen and Lori.
But you helped fill it out. But again, it's actors coming to you and you all figuring out
it's
the
Karen
show.
Coming to me as a childhood friend and saying, I have this really close friend, Lori Petty. You know, we want to do a show together. Wow. And we have this incredible bond. I mean, and they had great on-screen chemistry.
I didn't know they were friends in real life.
Yes, they were friends in real life. And they hung out at Hal's in Venice around all these quirky people. And Lori is also an artist. And it was just it was an opportunity for me as someone who had been now like kind of earned a position of, you know, access. And I was there to mentor and provide an opportunity for them to create something that they could, you know, thrive in. Unfortunately, the network canceled the entire night, so we were kind of collateral damage.
What are you walking onto that set with that you didn't have when you were on Living Single?
I'm just more seasoned now. You know what I'm saying? I'm much more relaxed. I'm much more comfortable. Like, I've now gone from helping launch A Different World to then another show that was in its first season and seeing how that went, to then creating my own show and having, you know, launched that show successfully. So I know what it takes. So I'm much more at ease. I'm much more comfortable about what this could be. And I'm collaborating with the actors who in that particular case happen to be the co-creators of the show. You know, so I'm helping to facilitate their vision, but I'm still the showrunner, which means not, you know, the ultimate in authority, which a lot of people think like this is power, you know, unrivaled. It's the ultimate position of accountability.
How would you say about navigating the industry when the industry is constantly changing on you?
I think as long as you stay true to your vision, that's really, again, that's the one thing you can control. Right. You know, you don't know what the industry is going to embrace. You don't know what the audience is going to embrace. But staying true to self is the one thing that you can always do.
And you did that again with For Your Love. How did that idea come to you?
Just ripping more pages from my diary. I mean, at that point in life, you know, I was married and I had a lot of married friends. Mm-hmm. And the pitch was super simple. Three couples, 3 stages of love. Like Warren Littlefield literally said, I basically bought it in the room after that sentence. So sometimes you don't know. Like when I talk to young writers about, you know, the development process and pitching, it's just like, make sure you don't bury the lead. And sometimes you might lose their attention after 5 minutes. So make sure that the most salient point, the juiciest thing, put it up front load. Be clear in your vision. And then just like leave room for discovery.
Did you have Holly Robinson Peete in mind when you walked into the room? And was that, at that point, were you just used to collaborating with actors and creating the characters, or was this time a little different?
This time was different in that Holly did have a talent deal at Warner Brothers, okay, which is where the show was developed. And I was on an overall at the time. But I was telling my story, which I've come to know from my very first job, is our story. For Your Love went 4 seasons.
That's a nice run.
4 seasons. It was a nice run. That show launched the year I had my first child. Holly had her twins, her first children. Our director, Barnett, his wife had just given birth. D.W. Moffat, who played Dean, his wife also had a baby. So we had a trailer for all the babies. Mm-hmm. So it was family-centric.
Wow.
It was family centric, very much.
Speaking of family, next credit I'm talking about is a family dynamic that I really am fascinated by. It's called Half and Half.
Half and half. Half and half came to me through my agent. The person who had created the show no longer wanted to go forward with the show. UPN was looking to take some scripts that already existed and make pilots if those scripts could be kind of polished and take them to the next step, which was a green light. It was written with a white cast in mind. And they asked me if I would consider kind of adapting it for, a Black or multiracial cast. And I did my best to preserve as much of it as I could because I thought that's such an odd request, quite frankly, because people are people.
Black. Yeah.
People are people. And the way we're going to brown it up is the way we're going to cast it, So, but I did a little bit of a toning pass. And then also was then given free rein to kind of create the backstories for these characters and put a lot of myself and my life into it because I do have half siblings. And as life would have it, particularly my life, my half sister came to live with me while we were shooting that show.
It's so interesting because a lot of people think of Half and Half as a show that you created. I think I kind of also thought
because I developed it.
Right.
And I was the showrunner.
What part of your brain do you have to turn off when you are showrunning a show that is not something you created?
You leave all the same lights on because you have to treat it like it's yours it's like being a surrogate. It really is. You have to treat it like it's your own because it's coming out of you week after week, idea after idea, character after character. It's emanating from you. So how can you not love it, embrace it, give it the best that you have to give it?
So there's no different approach to a show when it's not your creation versus when it is?
No, not really. I mean, it depends. I mean, like when you get into kind of the mechanics of helping someone else who created something who is present, it's different. Like, I feel like I've done a little bit of everything. This was not that. So the creator was not involved. So it really became mine to nurture and nourish and, figure out what, 4, 5, 6 seasons were going to be.
Right. I mean, how did it feel when the ratings came back and it was clearly finding an audience and you were finding a groove again and you got Rachel True and Essence Atkins and that really wonderful cast?
Great.
Did it feel like, I'm here again on a show that's working and this is where I'll be here? You just kind of like setting up camp?
I felt blessed, but also this is what I do. Like I said earlier, I'm built for this. This is what I'm purposed to do, and I'm doing it. And I'm doing it also giving other opportunities to people to kind of live out their dreams and tell their stories. I'm just providing another opportunity for everyone to work and to give voice to these characters and to tell a part of their story through these characters.
You were really excited at that time? There was no jaded energy? You were like, we're back at it?
Yeah, it never gets old. It never gets old. I think when it gets old, that's when you're done. I do. I think that's when you're done. I think that's when you say, I'm clocking out now.
Yeah.
Like, this is old hat. Because it's energetically, it is easy, but the work is hard. Writing is hard. Creating is hard. Constantly putting out is hard.
Output is,
output is hard. And you have to make sure that you kind of create the time to pour into yourself so that you have something else to say. They're all very, very different. The voices are different. The characters are different. There's certain overlap. And I'd like to think that the greatest similarity is that they're just authentic and they're of a certain quality that I embrace and consider my brand.
The mother-daughter thing comes up a lot.
Always.
That keeps popping up.
Always, because it is the most complicated of relationships. So there's so many different ways that you can explore it. Oh, yes. I mean, those two mothers.
Oh, my God.
Amazing. Amazing.
I'd love to talk about Black-ish.
Mm-hmm.
You were there for that first season.
For the launch, the first two seasons.
Yeah, the first two, yeah. How was that stepping into that world at that time? Because I do think TV, particularly the half hour, being single camera and the tone shifting, what was that like for you, being at that point a vet, an icon, just in your own right? How was it for you sitting at that table, and what were you offering that room?
It was very exciting to be there. I had mentored Kenya in the showrunner training program.
My big bro.
And when he was creating the show, so I was kind of advising him, and I, read the pilot and given him some thoughts, like in the development process. And he was like, I want you to run this show for me. And I was like, I'm open. And then there was a certain, I'm going to say, confluence of events. Without getting too emotional, I'm going to say my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And also someone else had a deal at the studio, and they wanted that person to run the show. I said, I want to help you launch this show. So you tell me what capacity makes sense for you. I don't know what time I have, given what's going on with my mother, but I'm there. Because I think, you're onto something, and I want to help you see it through. So, and I knew that we needed that show. Culturally, we needed that show. We needed that. We needed that show as another pathway or portal to what was to come next, which was kind of this real influx of new talent and new voices. But we needed that show. We needed it on network. We needed it on broadcast.
Well, seeing as how you came from the Cosby Show, A Different World, and then your own era that you created, I think, with Living Single, and also obviously Martin coming in as well. What was your view now sitting at the table at Black-ish, seeing what you had seen, living through what you had lived through? You're bringing something different into that writer's room, even if you weren't sitting at the head of the table. And I remember when you were there. I remember, you
I was on the couch.
Yeah. I came through.
Very purposefully.
Yeah.
But I was on the couch.
Yeah.
You were sort
of sitting back and observing.
Yes.
And piping up when needed.
More the consigliere.
Consulting producer type.
And I put myself, yes. And also, I felt like I had the perfect perch to observe and to also really yield the floor to this next generation of talent, but to contribute meaningfully. That was really my job.
How much, were you rolling up your sleeves in terms of the writing process, or was it? Okay, yeah.
I have the emails and the texts from Kenya Barris. Plenty. I rolled up my sleeves. Plenty, yes. Dre Johnson is Kenya, Anthony, and Kyle Bowser. Used a lot of our personal stories.
How was the conversation in the room when the episode came up for the talk?
Let's see. So I think it's interesting because I think we all have a different version of the origin story of that episode. And this is one of those moments I was like, oh yeah, Lena's going to ask me a question. There's going to be one pretty key detail that I don't remember. I can't remember in the historic timeline exactly which situation it was, like what horrible, horrific event went down. But something popped off, and I knew that it was going to be yet another night that I went home and had to have the talk with my two young teenage Black boys about the dangers of being Black. So I was crying in the room. It just overwhelmed me. And then Kenya bought some of my favorite alcoholic beverages into the room, and we had those. And we were all on the same page. We had a consensus, like, we have to deal with this. We have to tell these stories. And having, again, come up through a different world, and then also being topical, daring to be topical on Living Single, it didn't faze me at all that we would get a little bit more serious. And I also knew that it would put the show in another conversation. And so then we kind of just took this all hands on deck approach And we broke the story beat by beat, had lots of, I would say, rigorous and passionate conversation about it. And then Kenya went and wrote a beautiful script. And then we had our own internal table read of that script.
Which is when the writers say, I'll read it out loud.
And the writers are reading it out loud for themselves, and we're getting a sense of it. And it was really quiet in the room. You could feel the fear. It's so funny that ironic that there's a siren as we're having this discussion.
I know what God is doing.
And it was so quiet, you could hear a rat piss on cotton. And you could, the fear from the rest of the writers was palpable. Like, maybe this is too serious. So Kenya was a little concerned because he's like, the laughs aren't there. And I said, I've been here before, bro. Maybe the laughs aren't there. And we can also, look at key moments and see where we might, amplify that a bit. But this is exactly what you need to be doing right now. And it turned out to be a beautiful episode.
That episode did change things and let us know that Black-ish was not only an important show, but it was one that was going to be here to stay and be one that the first Black family would not only acknowledge, but speak to and help amplify. And I think we all understood the significance of Black-ish after that episode.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And I felt at home. And going back to, what was my role? That was my role. That was my role, to kind of put people at ease, to, draw on my vast experience and say, I've seen this before. I've been exactly in this place before, and this is how we push through it.
Absolutely.
But maintain your conviction about, when you know your why. It's kind of the first rule of storytelling. Why? Why am I telling this story, and why am I telling it this way? When you know your why and you have conviction about that, it's easy to be unflappable. It's easy to stay the course.
Yeah. And I think also Black-ish is that show that will do an episode called The Talk, and then they'll also do an episode called The Nod.
Absolutely. I love that one.
It's lighter fare.
Yes.
But just as relevant.
That was season 1. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Loved it. And the one about the spanking. I mean, whoo.
Come on.
That was so interesting. The cultural lines that were drawn. We're really going to do this spanking story? And I'm like, we need to do this spanking story. Right? And that was, again, that was one of those times when it's just it scares people and excites them in equal doses. And that's my jam. If it scares and excites me in equal doses, we're doing it. If I have anything to say about it, we're doing it. We're doing it.
Is that weird thing is interesting because I was talking to someone was interviewing me, and they were saying, do you get worried about scrutiny or people having thoughts on the work? And I was like, this is not new.
No.
It's but I said, it's interesting because all the people I've looked up to, obviously you being at the top of that list, the work that you've done isn't necessarily concerned with the audience's comfortability.
Absolutely. Sometimes the job is to make the audience feel that discomfort, to let them sit in it.
Yeah. Speaking of discomfort, the last credit, but definitely not the least, and one that I'm personally connected to. Even in the title is meant to make you sit in that uncomfortability. How did you hear about the gig to showrun Dear White People, the series?
I heard about the gig through my agent. I particularly loved the opportunity to extend the story in television, in a series, right? And
go ahead.
I enjoyed the work that Justin had done with the Bible, but I had some concerns about some choices that he wanted to make, that he had laid out in the Bible. And I boldly dared to just inquire/question the choices. He was planning to kill Lionel in the 3rd or 4th episode.
I do remember that.
And I looked at him and I said, I find Lionel to be one of the freshest characters and voices in the whole play. And I'm not sure why you want to do this. And then he talked a little bit about the tonal shift that he wanted, and also that he didn't think that the actor who played him in the movie was going to be available. And I said, but
Tyler
is
James
that,
Williams.
But is that, and I said, is that the reason to kill yourself out of the show? Because if I understand the person I'm meeting right now, you are Lionel. Lionel is you.
We are in conversation with ourselves.
I would not kill that character. I would find another way to shift the tone in the series to kind of get a little deeper. I would not do that. And so he said, I'm picking up what you're putting down. And I said, let me know if you want to do this. And then I got a call. You're the one.
Well, what's also interesting is we talked about your experience being at a different world, coming from Stanford. And now, fast forward, from different world to Dear White People. Wow, what a journey. It is about a fictitious PWI. What did you feel you could bring to that table, obviously, as a showrunner this time around? Did you feel more comfortable in your skin, not just as a vet at that point, but the fact that you were going to be able to speak to what your experiences were when you were in college?
Yes, and I felt much more comfortable about tackling the very important and necessary issues of the day. I also had a college-age son at the time, and I also knew which stories from my own Stanford experience 30 years prior were still relevant. And I went right back to that bucket and said, what about this? What about this? All of these kinds of personalities, they still exist in this environment, and they're still finding out who they are in this environment. And I really relished the opportunity to be back in that space again. I mean, and it's also the reason that because I took that particular gig, I didn't do Grownish with Kenya.
Oh,
I was like, he called me, and I'm like, I'm already in the college environment. And then at a certain point also, I was like, I'm good telling the college stories. I felt like after 3 hands-on seasons plus the 5 that I had on A Different World, I'm like 8 seasons of 18 to 24-year-olds. I'm good.
On Dear White People, a decision you made was for costume design. You brought back a blast from the past from A Different World to come do costume design on Dear White People. What was that experience like, reuniting and sort of building that bridge as well, and having Dear White People now becoming sort of a part of that lineage of A Different World?
Right. I thought it was quite a coup, quite frankly. I mean, Ceci is a brilliant costume designer. She's a dear friend. She's my soror. And, we kind of grew up together on A Different World, which I believe was one of her first costuming jobs, if not the first. And I just knew how, creative and innovative she was. And when you talk about, the then and the now of From A Different World to Dear White People, knowing how young people dress and upcycle things and put looks together, there was no other person that made sense to me. And when I introduced Ceci to Justin and she showed, her ideas and he talked about his ideas, it was just like a love fest. It just worked from the beginning.
How did it feel for you just being back in that sort of, I say college environment, but rather that world, and having had the experience that you had and now coming in to showrun and guide that show?
It's interesting because it was a full circle moment, but it also felt like a new beginning. Like it was really kind of like a really powerful energy injection for me creatively, because it was a different kind of show. It was next level challenge. You know what I'm saying? I'd come from multicam, I'd worked on single cams, but nothing quite as visionary and cinematic as what Justin wanted to do with Dear White People. And then also, particularly the way we handled storytelling in seasons 1 and 2 with the Rashomon and the single protagonist of it all was really innovative and really had a unique set of challenges that just invigorated me, just really invigorated me. And we figured that out kind of, episode by episode, piece by piece, character by character. And to be able to go through that casting process with him, first of all, to have him, get find a peace with not casting all of the original actors from the movie, and the excitement in his eyes when we found Sam, we found Coco. Like, I loved that for him, and it just gave me life. Just gave me life. And to see, someone young and new to television, like living their dream, a dream that I'd lived that I didn't even dare to dream when I was coming up. Here I was facilitating that for someone else. I mean, it just beats me, beats my soul.
You continue to show up in these series that shift things and move things and make us see ourselves in a new light. How has that been for you, just as a writer and as a creative?
Incredibly fulfilling. I mean, how can I not feel satisfied or fulfilled when I've been able to shift the culture, not once, not twice, but multiple times? And not because of my own proclamation, but because of what the audience and individuals from that audience are telling me.
Yeah.
When you create a character and dare to fight for a character like Maxine Shaw, and then, 30 years later, people like Stacey Abrams, Marilyn Mosby, Ayanna Pressley are saying, I became an attorney and chose a life of public service because of Maxine Shaw. It's been worth it. Every sacrifice, every struggle, every debate with actors holding wooden spoons. You know what I'm saying? If that's what it takes to get to that level of impact, I'm here for it. I'm here for it all day. Just like I say, like if it scares me and excites me in equal doses, give me more. Give me more till they snap the lid on my coffin. That's what I'm here for.
Well, it clearly costs you something. I think that's what I think we all learn when you see these careers such as yours and legacies that you've built. It costs you something. It costs you free time. It costs you time with your family. It costs you so many things. And I think we're all grateful for the sacrifice. We're grateful for all that it has cost you in order to build this beautiful tapestry of stories and characters and people that we continue to revisit and rewatch, which I think is a true sort of definition of a successful show or art. Not if you just watch it the first time, but you want to keep going back, which is what your work always is. We want to keep revisiting the work.
Quite a testament.
True.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last question. What's your definition of a really great television writer?
My definition of a really great television writer is someone who has vision and loves the work. You put love in, you get love out, and people love it.
Well, I think you described yourself. Because you are, I think, one of the greatest television writers alive. Because you continue to be great and you continue to evolve. But there's a through line in the work that we know it's you. And I think that's one of the things we all want to emulate when it comes to you, is that we want the work to feel so specific to us, so signature to us. And it's really the reason why we all want to touch the hem of your garment, because it's a difficult thing to be yourself on the page. And I think you have done such a elegant and humorous job at showing us all how to do that. But also what I've learned in looking at your work is that you're not afraid to work with other talent, particularly actors, I'm learning, in the development process to help them find their voice and not letting yours be silenced in the process.
Yeah. I find it easy to be generous. It's hard for me to be stingy. Like, if I'm not giving to you, you have effed something up. It's just kind of, it's my nature. I think it's because I just come from a place of wanting everyone to live their dream. There's a better life for each and every one of us. And if I can facilitate that for someone, if I have the bandwidth, if I have the time, if I have, a similar vision, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I mean, I particularly loved the opportunity working with Justin on Dear White People because he did let me put my thumbprint on top of his handprint because that's his baby, But if give me a little space in here, I'm good. I don't need to fill up the room. I don't need to be in control. There's something good about just kind of quietly, you got this.
Sitting on the perch.
On the couch.
On the couch.
That feels good.
Observing. Well, you've earned it. You've earned to sit on the couch, okay? We're all grateful. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you. It was practically painless. Are we done?
I love you. Thank you. We are now.
We're done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you can breathe.
This was lovely.
See? That's a cut. Thank you.